Welcome back to another edition of Cables in 4K. And this is really going to be part 2 of my XINHS previous video. And this is really more about some of the custom work that I've had done over the past few months. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, XINHS is an AliExpress store. And it looks like a normal cable store, but if you message them, you can have custom work done or slight modifications to any of their standard cables. So I've done that with a few, and we're going to kind of walk through some of that right now. So a lot of this work began with a thread on HeadFi, low budget, low cost budget cables, and Rikudou on HeadFi had requested from XINHS to do a custom copper and pure silver cable. The copper and pure silver cable is an idea that came from a more expensive cable brand. But there was never really a lower cost version of that hybrid. So this is actually what you're looking at is these two cables right here. And if you look closely, they are somewhat similar, but there's essentially just two different coppers. So these are 8 cores, 4 cores of this is the dark copper with pure silver, and this is 8 cores with brighter copper and pure silver as well. So these are super nice cables, about $30. Most of the cables I have done on XINHS are all done with, he calls these L-type. These are 2.5 millimeter L-types for balanced output. And these are, definitely on the thicker side, a little stiffer, but quite beautiful cables. There's really not that much else in this price range at $30 that you're going to get a very high quality copper, either in bright or dark, and pure silver running in a hybrid mix like this. So quite unique. And this is actually both coppers in one. So this is a bright copper, dark copper, essentially the same cable, but no silver. So if you look at it, it's just, like I said, it's just a bright copper and dark copper. It is just as thick as the others, maybe a little thicker because the silver itself is a little thinner than this thinner dark copper, but this is a super shiny, contrasty copper. I love this cable. This one is not listed, but if you ask them nicely and say, hey, can I have the bright copper and the dark copper combined from that hybrid, he will do that for you, or show him a picture of what I just showed you. So that is the copper and silver, pure silver hybrids. These are what I would call the silvers. And this is 4 cores of pure silver. This is 8 cores. This is actually the Limpid Pro from KB Ear. And this is a custom 12 core pure silver with black hardware that he put together for me. So starting with the 4 core, and the 4 core, people tend to dismiss it. It's a bit too thin, but when you actually use it, it's actually I actually like it more now than when I actually originally got it, because it is so lightweight, and with those shells that are lightweight, it's actually a really nice cable for very lightweight sets. So I do love it, and I got my L-type connector on it, which is great as well. But when you look at the 4 core compared to the 8 core, you can kind of get an idea of the difference between the two. This is, just 4 pretty thin cables braided together, and this is the full 8, which is actually quite nice. So just on a pure feel point of view, the 8 is definitely more substantial. It feels more sturdy. The 4 is something for people who really prefer a very lightweight, not necessarily fragile, but it's definitely on the thinner side, and you definitely have to be a little more careful carrying that one around. So the full 12 core, and for those of you who haven't witnessed a 12 core before, it actually comes out to be almost a square, and it's going to be really hard to see this on video, but these each side is actually flat, and it feels more like a box or a square braid than it does an actual cable. It's kind of wild. But when we look at it next to say the 8 core, you can kind of see where all those extra cores, it ends up being quite a substantial, thick, and I wouldn't say stiff, but it's a little stiffer. But yeah, it is quite thick, boxy, substantial cable. I kind of did it just because I could do it, and I was kind of surprised. I think I originally started out at a 10 core, and he said, "Oh, I can do 12." I'm like, "Okay, 12 core is good." And for those of you who haven't looked at the XINH silvers, they're actually very affordable for what they are. So I think the 4 core at some point went down to about $16. So quite nice. I really dig the pure silvers, and I do like this 8 core. I think that was part of the motivation for getting more cores was, well, you like 8, so more is better. So we went up to 12. So the next set, I would call these the twists. And so this white one right here, not a twist cable, but this is the generic version of WhiteCrane, Nice HCK's WhiteCrane. This is actually a Yinyoo 4-core twisted cable. It is 4 cores of UPOCC. It is very nice, and when you catch this one on sale, it's about $27. This is the XINHS version. As you can see, it has a right angle or L-type 2.5 millimeter, which you can't get directly from Yinyoo. They only do, I think, 3.5 and something else in the L-type. But if you've ever had this or touched this cable, it is actually quite soft. It's not like the stiffer 4-core braids. I think there's something to the twist as opposed to the braid, which lends a nice flexibility to it. And this silver alone looks pretty amazing. So as I said, this is the WhiteCrane, essentially. It's the generic WhiteCrane. It is a thick, each cable is actually quite thick and then braided 4 together. It ends up being a very substantial, beautiful cable. And if you read the Nice HCK listing, it says this is actually Furukawa copper, so very high quality copper, nice thickness, substantial 4-core braids there. So this is the twisted version of the Yinyoo copper, twisted with WhiteCrane's SPC Furukawa copper. And so it's a little bit of the best of both worlds. It's almost a candy cane twist, but it's copper and SPC, but retains a lot of the same flexibility that you get with the Yinyoo, but just combined with some higher quality Furukawa copper from WhiteCrane. So, again, not listed. This one is a custom, but I'm not sure I prefer this twist style to the braided style, but there is something to some of his coppers tend to be a little thicker, and then when you braid them into 4 cores or 8 cores, they become a little stiffer and thicker. So doing the twist kind of gets you back to a 4-core that is, more reminiscent of a softer cable that you might find maybe in the 16-core style. So XINHS, twisted, Yinyoo, UPOCC, WhiteCrane, Furukawa copper, twisted together into the candy cane or whatever you want to call it. So I just got this cable recently, but I've actually been using it a lot. I like it just simply because of the feel of it. And WhiteCrane is on its own is quite nice as well. So it's sort of 2 of my favorite cables twisted together. So another one that people have asked me about, and we talked about. So this is the XINHS generic version of Nice HCK's C41. So this is 4 cores, and it's sleeved in a nice, I think, a cotton material, almost like a paracord material. So super nice. If you haven't tried a sleeved cable, this is probably the one to try because it is quite affordable. And if you look at C41 on Nice HCK, that is not affordable. So this is beige color, which you can't get from Nice HCK, but he also has the black version, which is a couple dollars more. And I simply chose this one because I wanted to try a sleeve cable and it was a couple dollars cheaper than the black one. So that looks very similar to, this is the XINHS version of Nice HCK's BLOCC, BLOCC. So instead of 4 cores, these are 2 cores, and they are slightly thicker than each core of the C41. And in theory, it's a little higher quality copper as well. So this is the BLOCC with all black hardware. So quite nice, a unique version of BLOCC. But, you know, between the two, I would always suggest trying this one, because this is essentially double the price of that, and you're really getting just 2 slightly thicker cores as opposed to 4. So you have to really, really want a 2-core style to pay that much money for BLOCC, or even the XINHS generic version of it. It is still quite pricey. Either way, it's a pricey cable. Whereas if you just want to try a sleeved, very nice cable in black or beige, I would definitely go with that one. And, you know, if you look around, C41 is a very nice cable. And I don't want to say that it's cheap and affordable. It is still a very super nice cable for what it is. So lastly, for those of you who are kind of familiar with the older 16-core styles from Yinyoo or even Nice HCK, this happens to be a Yinyoo. And again, I like the contrasting colors usually, so I do have, this is an older Yinyoo 16-core cable in dark and bright copper. And here we have a 12-core XINHS Custom that he put together for me, and it's essentially 12 cores of higher quality copper, very similar to his dark copper that you would find in that cable. It's almost the same. I think he said it was the same material, just a slightly thinner version of it. So again, this is probably a 7N high quality dark copper in 12 cores. So as I said, it's a bit blocky. It's a bit squarish. So each one of these sides is actually flat, but you can kind of get an idea of how big, when you look at the older style 16 cores, how thin these wires are, and they're a bit fragile as well. And then you go into like a full 12 core like this, those are quite substantial. And again, this is going to be a little thicker, a little stiffer. This is definitely more ropier, nicer, softer feel. But again, I think I basically got this silver 12 core and this copper at the same time. He kind of showed me a picture of a spool and he's like, "Do you want 12 cores of this too?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So this is 12 cores. This is the black hardware he has. So again, quite nice, quite substantial. This one actually measures much better than the silver 12 core. I don't really know why that is, but this one measures very low and the silver actually measures quite high. So I think that's it for our little tour of XINHS Customs. So I will try to post some information in the description, but as I said, for the most part, these are not listed cables, and you will have to ask about getting any custom work through the AliExpress messaging system. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.